Hi there, my name is Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel BandysBooks, and today we are here for a rant or review, and I am so excited about the book that we're reviewing today. So this is an author who I have read a couple of their books previously, and one of the things that stands out to me is that they write historical fiction, but they write it with such meticulous research and detail. It makes all of their books so rich and so deep and interesting, and I have a feeling that this particular book is no different. So when Scribner reached out to me to see if I wanted a hardcover copy of this book, I was like, hell yes, send it over. I'm so excited. I've had great luck with this author before, and I felt like this book was going to be no different. But before I get on a big rant, let me tell you a little bit of detail about this particular book, and then we'll go into what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. So first of all, we're going to be talking about Lady Tan's Circle of Women by Lisa C. If you're unfamiliar with Lisa C, she is a writer of historical fiction. Her books are almost always set in Asia, and she does, like I said, just meticulous research. Each topic for each book is so interesting and unique, but they're always really well done. This book was released on the 6th of June, and it was also featured in the Book of the Month box for June, which I did predict that in my Book of the Month video, which you can see up here. This currently has a 4.44 rating and over 4,000 reviews on Goodreads so far. I would expect for that rating to stay around that area. I don't think it's going to drop very much. This particular book is set in China during the 1400s, and it features a lot about women's health and medicine. This book follows a character named Tan Yunjian, who is being raised by her grandparents. Now, the thing that's really interesting here is that her grandparents are both doctors. Her grandmother in particular is one of the very few female doctors in all of China, and they are teaching her the pillars of Chinese medicine. Yunjian learns about female maladies in particular alongside a young midwife in training named Mei Ling. They find mutual purpose and vow to be forever friends. But when Yunjian is sent into an arranged marriage, her mother-in-law forbids her not only from practicing medicine, but also from seeing Mei Ling. She's expected to be a proper wife who embroiders slippers, recites poetry, plucks instruments, and most importantly, gives her husband sons to become heirs. She's destined to forever be locked within the walls of the family compound. But Yunjian is not happy with that fate, and she is determined to figure out not only how to continue to practice medicine, but how to see her best friend Mei Ling as well. So as I mentioned when I opened this video, this book was impeccably researched, as are all of Lisa C's books. I don't know if she has an entire team that helps her do research, or if she just is like one of those people that just is fastidious in details and, you know, dives like incredibly deeply into subjects. But whatever is going on to create such well-detailed books, keep it up. I felt that way about The Island of Sea Women as well, which I read previous to this book, and I feel that way about this. It is like the amount of detail that is included in this. I felt like I not only enjoyed the story because of the detail, but I felt like I actually learned things because of it. There was so much about the 1400s, about class, about medical practices, about the way that females were viewed at the time, about foot binding. I mean, the topics that this book goes into are endless. But the thing is, it's not just like she jammed every piece of information into this book that she could include. It's all well thought out, and it all makes sense within the story. There are some books that I have read in the past, especially like in the historical fiction genre, where authors just want to include every little interesting factoid that they found, and it becomes jarring within the story. That is not the case here. Everything that is included fits smoothly and moves the narrative along. So super, super well done there. The description was also really beautiful in this book. I loved how visual this felt. We at times are in the family compound, at times we're floating on boats in the rivers. No matter what's going on, it's always very, very easy to visualize the situation. It does get difficult at points because there is a lot of discussion of illness, injury, and medical practices. So that can be a little bit cringy at points. Because it's so well described, it can kind of gross you out. If you're kind of a squeamish person, I would definitely warn you about some of the sections in this book. But overall, the description was really stunning. And I really have to say that our two main characters, Yunjian and Mei Ling, are really enjoyable characters. Yunjian is kind of torn because she has been raised to be a proper woman her whole entire life. She's been coached on how to properly care for bound feet, how to embroider slippers, how to recite poetry, how to play instruments, all sorts of things. But she also has been raised to be a doctor and to question things and to think. And so she has this internal conflict where she's been given instruction to kind of just sit still and not do things as different situations occur. But you can see that that's not an easy choice for her. It really tears her up inside. And I felt like I really related to that, because even though in the time period that this book takes place, women are obviously much more subjugated than they are today, I still related to the fact that she's not always able to be 100% who she is and who she wants to be. And I feel like no matter the time period we look at, women always are subject to some of those expectations. And Mei Ling is a great contrast to Yunjian. So the thing that I really love is that they're so different in so many ways. Yunjian is from higher status and Mei Ling is from like the working class folk. Yunjian is a proper doctor who's not allowed to touch blood or bodily fluids, and Mei Ling is a midwife who's literally there to catch bloody babies as mothers give birth. And her grandparents have the foresight to pair the two of them up because of their differences. They see them as like the yin and yang, balancing each other out. They have different views on the world, different practices, but they're very complementary to each other. And because of those differences and the similarities that bring them together, they have such a fast friendship. They're not just business partners, they're also really, really good friends. And that friendship that they form is just so sweet and touching, and just a great center of the book. This book focuses a lot on the role of women in society in a lot of different ways. So one of the first things that we get introduced to is the process of binding feet. Yunjian's mother has like an abscess in one of her bound feet that becomes very infected. And we're introduced to all of the risks that come with the process of binding feet, and how in a lot of cases, it's best to have a mother do it for her child because she's going to do it very carefully, as opposed to having a stranger do it who may not exhibit such care. And then what it takes to maintain those bound feet for the rest of your life, all of the work, all of the pain, all of the struggle. It was so remarkable learning about what these women went through just to have dainty feet. And in some ways, I feel like the bound feet are kind of symbolic to how women are treated in society, not just physically, but also emotionally and in terms of like their place in society. So they're kept cloistered within the walls of family compounds. They're physically disabled so that they can't move around with confidence. They have to take these little tiny steps and they can't go very far or very fast. And that's kind of like how they're treated for the most part, is like, oh, you're just like a decorative piece. You're not there to have opinions. You're not there to do substantial things. You're just there to be pleasing and to bear sons. So that was really interesting. And in contrast, Mei Ling, who comes from a lower social status, is exposed to women who are workhorses, who do demanding jobs, who take care of difficult things on a day-to-day basis. And so it's really interesting how the role of women differs from like elite society to like the working class individual. And kind of continuing on from that subject, I really in particular loved the frank discussion in this book about how male doctors often failed female patients. And it's hard because this is a discussion that like I don't want to relate to because this book is set in the 1400s, but it also felt incredibly relevant to what's still going on today. There were so many instances where there was a male doctor acting like he understood how a female's body was working, what was happening to his patients. And honestly, most of the time, these male doctors are just kind of guessing. They don't really have enough education, and they definitely don't have the empathy to deal with some of these complex situations. And as somebody who deals with a reproductive disorder, I have found such a similar experience in modern medicine dealing with male doctors. I have had doctors tell me things where you're just like, how did you graduate medical school and still hold this type of belief? And it's interesting too, because doctors in this book are discrediting the pain and discomfort that women are going through during childbirth, which is very similar to doctors nowadays who don't adequately treat female pain. It's like a well-known fact. And that relates very much to modern medicine, where doctors are extremely dismissive of female pain. Women are often having debilitating symptoms and being told that it's all in their head, they're just having bad anxiety, go home and take some ibuprofen, stop making, such a big scene, don't be hysterical. And to me, it was just crazy that something set in the 1400s would be so relatable to us now in 2023. And that said, the thing that I ultimately loved the most about this book was that this came down to women supporting, caring for, and loving each other. We see so many good female relationships within this story. We see obviously Yunjian and Mei Ling, and they have just such a beautiful friendship and working relationship, but we also see a beautiful relationship between Yunjian and her grandmother. There's so much love and respect and care. We see a beautiful relationship between Yunjian and her father's concubine, who actually steps up and raises her when her own mother passes away. And that's also a really beautiful relationship. Like, there's not an ounce of jealousy involved in it, and it's just a woman stepping up and raising a girl who desperately needs a mother figure in her life. We see even people that don't necessarily always act right in the story be treated with fairness and dignity and respect in multiple different occasions. And I just love that these women in this book are all portrayed in such a good light. And I feel like it was ultimately, even though difficult things do happen in the story and there are really sad things that happen, just such a beautiful story of women empowerment and women supporting each other. I found that really touching and uplifting, and it kind of made me feel hopeful in some ways. Now, usually I would add in some critiques here, but I actually don't really have any critiques for this story. This comes in just above 350 pages, and that felt like just the right length for the story. It wasn't too long where you're just like bogged down with description and unnecessary info, and it wasn't too short and rushed either. It was a nice, smooth pace. It wasn't super fast. This maybe is a little bit more reflective than some of Lisa C's other books, but I really enjoyed it. It was a very character driven and really focused in on relationships, which I felt was really nice. I will say that there are a lot of trigger warnings for this book, in particular medical content, miscarriage, murder, child death, epidemic, pandemic, and definitely a lot of blood and gore. In particular, there are some pretty graphic descriptions of people getting sick, of people giving birth, and some very graphic descriptions of punishments for crimes. So if you're at all sensitive to any of those topics, or in particular sensitive to very graphic description, then maybe proceed with caution in this book. Nothing is gratuitous, and I don't think anything was included that didn't need to be, but it isn't always easy to read through, and I can definitely understand maybe wanting to skip over some of that. So that being said, for me, this was a 5-star read. I am so glad that I had a chance to pick this up. Big thank you to Scribner for sending this. And I do want to say that just because I received a free copy of this book does not mean that I'm always going to give a good review. I pride myself on being very objective with my reviews, and while I'm always thankful to receive a free book, I am not going to give someone a 5-star review or even a 4-star review if the book doesn't deserve it. So rest assured, when I say that this is an amazing book, I really genuinely think that this is an amazing book. I was looking forward to it coming out, and I'm so glad to have had this chance to read it. So that's the end of this video. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up. Comment down below and let me know, have you read any of Lisa C's books before? Has this one been on your radar at all? Are you considering reading it? And if you're not already subscribed to this channel, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button down below, as well as that notification bell so that you never miss a video. And that way we can see each other again soon. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.